So do you want to do?
Hello? Sure.
I don't know why I said into the mic. And then what are we going to do second?
Citizenship.
Okay. So that is the trust going to
Hopefully the updates will be fairly concise. Is that? Are they? Yeah.
Lori and Tyrone will do their own thing.
Okay. Okay.
So maybe I'll call them up first.
Sure.
And then I'll read through these.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Hope you can hear that okay. Is it too loud or too quiet? Okay. So thanks for coming out. We're going to cover a few things tonight. First of all, we're going to do a few just fairly brief updates from Executive Council. And then we're going to move into the citizenship proposed changes and how that's all coming along. I think most of you have seen it before, but it's, we're always evolving. And then we will get into the comprehensive nation plan and how that's all unfolding. And I'm not sure if the trust is going to do anything. I did see Anne here, but Losa's shaking her head no, so the trust is probably not going to be doing an update. So I think we're going to start out with the council updates. So I believe I saw Tyrone and Lori here. So maybe I see Tyrone coming this way, so we'll let him give you his update, and then Lori, and then the three who are not here, I've got some write-ups from them, so I'll read those out and pretend I'm them. Thanks.
Thank you, Rod. Good evening, everybody. It's all good to see you. I'd like to give Losa a big hand for catering such a good dinner for everybody. But yeah, it's really good to see everybody here. Just give you a brief update on my house post as the Public Works house post leader. We'll start off with the housing part. With the housing department, we've been moving and grooving a few renovations here and there. You guys probably noticed some of our skilled workers out there being led by Walter, and his workers are Byron and Stuart and Gary and Vern Wilson Jr. Highly skilled fellas, and I'm glad that we have these resources in our community to actually do the work rather than to contract it out. So there's a few renos going on within the housing department. We're just trying to accommodate our waiting lists. With that being said, I'll jump into with some of the things that have been going on with the housing committees. We usually meet once a month, but as of late we've been busy because kind of the holiday season, but we're getting geared back up, and we'll continue our monthly committee meetings. So if there's any concerns that we have out there within the nation, feel free to email me, and I'll make sure that some of the concerns and issues that we have at hand are addressed. And leading into the public works part with Sean Louis' department, another department fully staffed. I know we have under him would be Joel, and Sam, and Mikey, and Mary, and David Wilson. So that department is meeting all our expectations, but that department, we all know that department needs to grow, because the farther and farther we get down the road with the self-governing part, we need to become our own municipality. So with that being said, hopefully this department will grow by many more numbers. We're looking at hiring a new director for that public works part to give them direction on the nation's needs as far as our infrastructure. And we're in steps in the right direction on all our departments going forward. And with that being said, I'll touch base on our fire department. We've got many good volunteers within our fire department. It's really nice to see men and women, contributing to our safety needs for our community. They've been through multiple training sessions, exterior firefighting training for one, first responders training, interior firefighting, levels 1 and 2, just led by pioneers such as like Floyd and, and Phil and Melvin and, Walter for that fact, And I'd like to raise my hands and congratulate Walter on 35 years plus service, and he stepped back and, let the younger guys take reign and, just to give us that safety aspect that, if I can remember correctly, that Tla'amin First Nation Fire Department, Volunteer Fire Department is the first department, is it Canada wide or in BC? First Indigenous Fire Department with that certification for interior and exterior firefighting. So that's a big accomplishment. So, yeah, hands up, hands raised to all our volunteers that keep growing our department in the right direction. And, we just keep moving in the right direction, keep moving forward and stand beside each other and help each other out in that area. So, it's really good to see all of our departments, flourishing in the right areas. So, for my part as executive council, as the House post, that's just a brief update, and there's better things to come for our nation, and we're in a really good place. And just thank you guys for really putting the trust in the leadership and standing behind us. And I know we disagree to agree, but we all have to move as one, right? So it's the whole part of this process that we're going through. The self-governing nation is just be there for each other and stand beside each other. I'd like to thank you guys for coming out. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you. Ebot.
Thank you, Tyrone. So the lands and resources is lands, fisheries, forestry. Mainly those are the main ones, and a few, there's ongoing monthly and quarterly, there's even weekly fisheries meetings with DFO that Tyrone and them participate through teleconference. So there's things that are ongoing all the time, and then there's quarterly meetings. So business as usual, we're keeping up to implementing the treaty. The new things right now is eelgrass restoration project. We're in the early stages of planning an eelgrass restoration project, which is the habitat for herring. So we're working hard on trying to help the herring stocks come back. So we made that a priority, and we're in the early stages of planning that. I'm not sure if you're aware, the map, the boundaries of our treaty lands is like a GIS. It's like a model or a program. So since treaty effective date, we have land surveyors basically ground truthing and putting in pins in the ground all over our lands, to kind of ground truth the map. So that's been ongoing, and through this process, we are seeing discrepancies. We see like a shed or a children's tree house right on the line. We see that, say, out in Oakover, where there's like maybe an oyster lease, and then his structures for his operation is 3 times as big, and it's on our treaty land. So, we're in a place where we're seeing that, the provincial government, or Canada or BC, the government, didn't really have a good management or a good grip on what was going on in their land. So we have a big list of all these discrepancies and these trespasses and all these things. So we're trying to, so now we've got to try and say, hey, you got to take down those structures. And at Powell Lake, for instance, there's treaty settlement land. So there's a lot of just little things all over our land that we're finding. So I guess the Canadians, they're used to what they have, and we're coming in and saying, this is our treaty land. You have to, the government has to make sure it's environmentally sound, these structures and these people's things have to be removed. So we're working on that in partnership with Canada and BC. So if you want to know any details about forestry, fisheries, or lands, you can set up an appointment with me and I can come over and meet you and bring all these materials for you to go over. What's another project or initiative that is new is we're also going to add like an enforcement for beaches. And in addition to the beach monitoring projects that we've been doing in the summer. So that's another new initiative. And if there's any other initiatives, I'll put it in the memo. But that's all for now. Is there any questions?
I just had a question about is there a plan for firewood for the nation members? And for one, burn wood, and wouldn't mind getting ahead of the game on having drywood in place, like a couple of years ahead, kind of thing.
Thank you for reminding me. That is actually another initiative. We're in the early stages right now. We're planning or trying to see where can we remove trees that have forest health issues, blow down, and like for logging, for example, when we write a logging plan, it actually takes 1 year from when we start to when they actually log. So we're in the early stages of looking into firewood. Right now it's just for elders, but we should be looking at a broader scope with our membership.
For people to purchase?
Well, we did that once, and that's it was just characteristic of the cut block at that time. So it just so happened that we had to log an area that had the crappy wood that wasn't even merchantable, and we had a lot of it. So we decided to put it up for sale. That was about 1.5 years ago. So we did try that once, and we should be putting it on the table for discussion for more, maybe on a more regular basis.
With your comments about encroachment on our treaty settlement land, as a nation that received the largest land transfer to any First Nation in the history of BC, I am still confused about why we don't have a GIS department, a full-blown GIS department, and that we would be better stewards of the land. It would give us a better handle on the lands. Is there anything in the works?
Where's Rod? Rod can speak to that, but I know that, posting went out today. Thanks.
Well, just have a question. What is the age for elders?
What is the age for elders? I believe, I don't know if we have like a policy like in writing, but I think we've been going to 60. Yeah, 60. Okay. So, like, we still have INAC programs and services, and like, we still have INAC funding for programs and services. So those is like a hard wall. Like, we have to go by their criteria, rules, like everything to do with that money. So if it's INAC program or service, and if it says 65, then we have to administer for that. But I think for our own programs and services that we fund from our own revenues, I think we've been going with 60. Adeline? Oh, you got one, okay.
Hi, Laurie. Are you in charge of the fisheries?
Well, I'm the, the counselor that, oversees, like, yeah, it's my portfolio, but it's the staff that actually does all the work for the programs and services.
Okay, I just had a question about the communal part of it, because I know other nations get halibut and prawns, and, there are elders that do wish for their seafood, like crab, or, we haven't been getting any fish, I guess, because of the restrictions that were happening in with our sockeye, but I'm wondering if, they're able to assist a little bit more for people that don't have boats and can't get out there for our traditional foods.
Hello again. Yeah, I could speak to that. What has happened last year, unfortunately, was DFO has put so many closures in place as far as any resource goes, as far as like the herring. We're open to gather herring roe from other nations, if wish be, to meet the needs of the community. Prawns, we've done a few sets of prawns where we went out because we saw the community's dire need for that resource, and we tried to get everybody a little taste of what was out there through our prawn boat. But with that being said, we did have this conversation with the halibut part, and the halibut only yielded 10,000 pounds for the community. And unfortunately, with the no fishing of the Chinook, with the retention last year, really put a burden on the fisheries program, and that was all calls from DFO and the government of Canada and BC, and it really put a hardship on our community. I realize your guys' frustration, but with the halibut that we had received from our commercial licenses, I was ordered to keep any resource that would come to the community, to keep it in the community freezers for community purpose. And that's not to, that was just straight across the board. We needed to keep our resources in the freezer for community purpose, for funerals and stuff like that. We didn't have a sockeye opening again. The notion closure, like I was talking about earlier, that went into place. It seemed like every meeting that we went to with DFO, and we kept pounding the table and asking them why this, why that, and red flags should be going up in your guys' heads, that us as Native people are stewards of the land, and if you wanted any data, you should be asking First Nations, but they're making their call on their own. Our chum return was very poor this year. We barely made to meet our expectation for our brood stock for the hatchery this year. This year was one of the lowest years. I think we accumulated 310,000 chum this year as far as brood stock goes for eggs, so it's a really all-time low for our nation. We're looking to expand our operations this year. It's just the fact of the matter that, DFO had did all their consultation with us, and to me, as a fisheries worker for the nation, they did a consultation. It was just a bunch of lip service. They came here, they checked the box and said we consulted with the nation, but that's as far as it ever went. I proposed to shutting the herring fishery down, backed up with our nation and Paul River and Denman Island residents, and they came here with their scientists and their biologists, and it was heartfelt that that they still gonna have an opening for herring. It's just all about the market, but Yeah, I'm hoping that this year is going to be a plentiful year. Our harvest cards are always available, so we can go out and do more outings as a group. We got the boats within the nation to actually take out groups to go out and do field trips to get resources. On that hand, we have me thinking forward, looking at our canoe journey, right? And we cannot sustain no resources within our community this year, considering that we have to host this journey next year. So we're looking to probably potentially buy off of our neighboring nations from Port Alberni, because of the consequences of this non-Chinook closure is probably going to be 3 to 4 years, maybe even 5. And as far as the sockeye go, it's undetermined right now what DFO is going to do, right? And we're trying to unify other nations and, just get all our fish portfolios together and really make a push and tell DFO that, we have needs. And I understand your guys' frustration. This has been the quietest year since I've started under Kevin Timothy, and see the freezer that empty, it's alarming. But I got orders to keep it for community purpose, for our elders, for any other function, because it's better off to be there than not be there, right? So this year I'm proposing to hire a bunch of community members to actually go out and get a bunch of oysters, deliver them to the community, go out and clam dig when there's not a commercial clam dig, take our young guys out hunting, teach them how to be on the land, work with Drew in the cultural department and really get something moving and grooving, because we can talk about this all day long and, and try to make things happen is another thing. Putting our effort in as Native people, that's what DFO wants, so we're going to exercise that right this year. So we're going to get our community members out there and actually do something, right? We've got to take care of each other. So DFO right now, just reluctantly, they're not listening, but we have to power down and be, with our neighbor nations, echo that frustration to the point that we'll be heard to actually push for more openings. But within our laws, conservation rules overall. That's in our treaty laws, so we have to abide by conservation.
Did you say there's 310,000 chum?
Pardon?
310,000 chum? For the egg take. Okay.
Oh, for our egg take, yeah, we only got 310,000. Usually we get 1.5 to 3 million eggs every year out of the hatchery. So it's a really all-time low. So we're looking to expand our operations at the hatchery, and don't get me wrong, we're really making a push to expand the holding part so we can do more work and have that resource go back out and, just be part of the rebuilding process. As the only good news I had for today was there was a herring spawn in front of Lonnie, and it went all the way to Southview. And it's been some years or decades for that fact that we've had herring spawn on this side. And we've been arguing with DFO that, we need to shut fishery down for as many decades as we've been deprived, right? So, excuse me. But if we've been deprived without our herring for 3 or 4 decades, so should DFO, right? We'll stand by not having a herring opening on this side and, just be that stronghold against them on that resource. So, we are trying. It's just that, we get all these barriers put in front of us, and we have to try to talk our way through it. And it's a vicious cycle when it comes to fisheries. It's like forestry, right? Fisheries and forestry should be right up there, equal keel, because these resources. I understand your guys' frustration. It is one of the lowest years that we've had. And as a fishery worker, I hope to go to bat with, our director and Lori and, really make a push for this and be that voice that you guys need at the table. Yep.
Just a question about enforcing the laws, and this is for you and Lori. When the laws are broken on the land by our own people, what is the process? You've got somebody that's in enforcement. He brings it to the legislators, for discussion, and when laws are broken, how is that handled? I know we're in early days of reinforcing and standing behind our laws, but they are laws. And I understand that, you know, trees are being cut down by our own people, they're getting caught, and these early offenders are gonna get a slap on the wrist, and then you start enforcing laws? Like, how does that work?
So the Lands Department, and I think Rod's been part of this too, we're actually working together with the Crown Prosecutor at the court system, right? Yeah. So we are going through the process where our enforcement officers will be able to give fines, write out a ticket, and it'll be supported at the courthouse. So we've been having, I don't know how many meetings we've had, but we have been in discussions with Crown Prosecutor and judges and court systems in town to recognize our treaty and to recognize fines and trespasses on our land. So, and we, yeah, yeah, okay, great.
So you're right, we are in early days, and just recently we've had our lawyers working on this and trying to get it recognized in the court system. So just very recently it was handed down to the local court system that they need to recognize our laws. So now we're working on the ticketing aspect so that we can actually give tickets that will be recognized when they get to court. So it's getting close. No. Okay. Are you done? Okay.
Well, yeah, you can ask.
Okay. Are you guys done with Lori, so to speak? Okay, so I have little updates from the three who are not here. So I'll just read them, and obviously I can't answer questions on it because I didn't write it, but I can try. So we'll go alphabetical. We'll start with John. So this is from John Hackett. His house post is the admin finance. So he starts by saying who the finance committee is. It's Davis McKenzie is the chair, Clint Williams the co-chair, Eric Laney is the community representative, and John Hackett is the executive and legislative council representative. And also at those meetings, either Steve Hunter or myself or both of us attend as a resource. So the roles of the committee is really capital budgeting, and they have an open house to review drafts of budgets, to give citizens an opportunity to have input, stating their vision to move forward. And that's something that we added. Our law was a little backwards on how that was supposed to work, so we put that in there. Then a final draft of the budget is recommended to the legislature, and after all those recommendations are reviewed, if it's a feasible budget, it's recommended for approval and endorsed, and then it is sent to the spring General Assembly for public input before it's finalized. So a few financial highlights from 2019-2020. Canada was asked with about 25 other self-governing nations across the country to renegotiate our FFA, our fiscal financing agreement, early, which was several years early. And this was due to a strong financial position and being on side with audits, being on time and so on. And it was really a very positive thing for us. It resulted in an increase of about $15 million. In over a period of time. So it's about $3 million a year in additional program funding. And there's additional infrastructure funding outside of the FFA as well. The treaty negotiation loan was eliminated, and we had already paid 4 years worth into that, so we'll be getting that back over a period of 5 years at $1.5 million, these are round numbers, per year for 4 years. And then the rest is not repayable. And there's been some discussion about using that money for the elders care facility, but that's just been discussion at some of these events. So we'll see what happens with that over time. The Klahani specific claim, as I don't think anyone's ever even heard of that, have they? No, I didn't think so. Okay, so it was approximately $22 million, and the distribution for all of the citizens is an estimated $9 million. There's $2 million to repay the elders' benefit that we provided in the fall, I think it was. So that leaves about 10.5 million that is going to be invested and put away for future generations. Just a few quick comments on the taxation authority. The members are from Executive Council, everybody except Clint, so John, Lori, Tyrone, and Larry. And from staff, Steve Hunter and Pam Wilson, and from the ratepayers, Laura Waltz. And we're required to have somebody from the leased lands on that. Got a mic? I couldn't hear it.
Locking up was it 7,500 for the kids that are under the age of 18
Yes, absolutely.
with interest?
I'm glad you brought that up, Neil.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and then what about, is for future, like, does this include for future generations to come, or is there like just people that are born and living now?
In terms of the distribution?
Yes.
Yeah, the distribution is for people who were born by midnight on September 25th of last year. Okay? That's because that was the date of the referendum to accept the claim. Okay? So as for the minors, yes, their money will be put away in a trust, and they will get it with interest when they come of age, when they turn 18. They do not need to apply. They don't need to fill out the form that you fill out. We are just taking it from a list, and it'll be based on that list. Money will go in. If a child materializes that isn't on our list, they'll be added to that. Okay? And they do not have to be a citizen or a 554 by September 25th, as it says on the form for adults. As long as they become a 554 or a citizen before their 18th birthday, they're good.
Of that 10, how much of that 10.5 is going to be locked away for?
All of
No,
it.
10.5 remaining after what people are getting. I think that's what you said,
All
right?
of it.
All of it is going to be in dividends or dispersed, trust.
All of it is going to be put away and saved for
Oh,
future
all of it.
generations.
But how much of the 10.5 is going to, all of it's going to existing children under the 18?
So the 10.5 is what was left after the distribution.
Oh, that includes the children?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the 9 million estimated dividend includes the kids. Okay? All good? Maybe wait for the mic so others can hear you.
Is this an account for like all the minors under one account, and they'll go, like, is minors under all one account, or are we gonna, like, can we make contributions to it, or is it under their name?
That's a question somebody else asked, and we'll be having a session with RBC Dominion in the near future, and they can explain those things, because somebody asked the question, can I top up my kids' money? Don't have the answer for that yet. So when we know when that'll be, keep your eyes open for RBC trustee coming, and we don't have a date yet. No, we're trying to get a date right now.
I just had a quick question. How many actual people are enrolled with our membership?
Sorry, I don't have that answer. Is Pam here? I just can't remember. Well, 1,100 is the total 554s, but not all 554s have become citizens.
I guess I'm asking about the, trying to do the math about the Tla'amin, because you said you're going to do the 9 million. I was just wondering how many people within will be getting those benefits.
Okay, so yes, that's between 11 and 1,200 people. Thanks. Okay, so still with John here, a few other highlights from 2019-2020. Made an amendment to property tax coordination agreement, basically to eliminate the need for us to follow the Powell River City mill rate for taxes, because that caused us to lose money last year on the Tla'amin taxes. So we lobbied the government and said this is a ridiculous rule and it has to change, and they changed it. So now we can have a balanced budget. And that, the taxes that they pay are for garbage pickup, road maintenance, water line maintenance, and that sort of thing. And that was it for John. So if you have a question you think I might be able to answer, go for it. But if it's a John question, you better email him. Okay, we'll move on to Councillor Larry Louie. So Larry's is a little difficult because it's really his speaking notes, so I'll do my best. First of all, he asked for a moment of silence for Kyle Francis and James Francis, so maybe we could do that, or half a minute or something. Thank you. So Larry, his house post is community services, so that includes health, education, social development, justice, culture and language. He's also a representative on the Thet Regional Hospital Board, and the Powell River Hall of Fame Committee, and Citizenship and Membership. He participates in the Social Action Plan Committee of Powell River and Lands and Natural Resources, not sure about that, and Elders Rep. So as I see it, or as he sees it, Slam and Indian Band has now become Tla'amin Nation as of April 5th, 2016. The Legislative Assembly, in the first session, 8 legislators in the Hagus were elected, and then by secret ballot, 4 were picked to be on the Executive Council. And those four legislators, budgets and audits. Okay, so he's talking about they're not called AGMs anymore. Thank you. The General Assemblies. That there's a budget one in the spring and an audit one, or those are the focuses anyway, in the fall. And then the house posts were assigned. The Lands and Natural Resources, which was Lori, as you know, Finance and Admin is John, Public Works is Tyrone, and Economic Development is the Hagus or Clint. He's very proud of the group that are under his house post. The Health recently raised outdated medical travel rates. Social Development has improved its clientele, meaning it has declined. So that suggests that people are wanting a better way of life. The Education, this group is hard at work, so he doesn't want to ruffle any of their feathers. Justice is well. Lawbreakers are lawbreakers. The nation has new enforcement officers to look after our lands and resources. Culture is going strong, preparing for the canoe journey coming to Nanaimo, along with language. He tries to have quarterly meetings, January, March, September, and December, usually on a Friday. And he's looking forward to engaging with the liaison person, meaning the urban liaison person, to try to improve communications. And if there are any suggestions for him, he'd like you to get a hold of him. Yes, Anne?
It's not a question, it's a comment. My comment is that I feel that our elected leaders should be here for these information sessions. For 3 of them to not be here is unacceptable. That they don't give a reason or send regrets for why they're not here, it's unacceptable.
Yeah, I can't speak to either of the preceding two. Clint does give regrets, but let's see, it's Tuesday, and Larry is probably working. I know that he typically has said he's available Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So, but anyway, you'd have to talk to them, or I can mention it to them. But you know, I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just telling you what I know.
Is there a certain amount of these meetings that they're required to go to, like a percentage?
I know.
And what type of consequences when you don't show up?
Not to these ones. There are requirements for the council meetings and legislative sessions, but these community consultations, there are no specific requirements in the laws.
I feel the community is owed the leaders to come here. Of all things, there should be more consequences for them not showing up to community meetings.
No, that's a valid suggestion. So, we take that under, and when we look at laws and consider it.
Hey, I just had a quick question around citizenship. With membership, I know that 554, once we do fully go into our treaty, that the 554 will be totally abolished. No? Oh, so 554 will continue to exist? Really?
No, what's abolished is the what used to be called the Tla'amin Indian Band. Okay. So in the past, 554s were all members of the Tla'amin Indian Band. At effective date, the Tla'amin Indian Band ceased to exist, but 554s still exist. And INAC, or whatever they're calling themselves this week, they have a name for those people, and this is their terminology, not mine. I think it's something like an Indian at large. Dylan might know. So you're a 554, so you're a status Indian, but you don't have a band affiliation because the band no longer exists. But you're still entitled to all the same tax breaks and benefits of any other status person.
Sorry. Do you still redeem your status card then? If you
I don't have one.
If you're independent, I guess not an enrolled citizen, you still redeem your status?
What do you mean by redeem it?
Keep your status.
Yes. And there is a point where the status card is going to cease to exist, but the status will still be there. And you may have more information on that. I forget exactly how that works.
Yeah, you keep your status card whether you're enrolled or not. But if you look at the new secured status cards that we all will get eventually, I guess, there's a little fine print on the back that says, that this individual is not eligible for the tax exemption in certain years. Yeah. Yeah. Are we? Oh, okay. Sorry, you're not done yet. That was a good segue.
Hello? Hello?
Oh, hello.
I also find it unacceptable that these 3 aren't here. We voted them in, and they should be here for the meetings. They don't give a reason why they aren't here, and they should be here. Like whoever, when the one who was speaking behind me said, you know, I find it unacceptable too.
Okay, well, I will definitely be passing that message along. And I'll also look at Miel's idea of, you know, making it mandatory for some of these things. But, I mean, it's not something I can control because, you know, they're my boss, right? So.
I know to have somebody else read their paper, I don't think that's right.
Okay. I really don't know the answer to that. That's possible.
I don't think so. Committee meetings, but not community, yeah.
I think it's best that we leave this at something that I'm
Yeah.
going to look into because, and I'm not blowing you off at all, but just we could talk about it for a long time. I think you have valid points, and I think I'm going to look at it. And Marlene, were you?
Just related to Larry's report, the one is a house post that is health. The one report I was looking forward to, actually hearing and understanding where exactly we are with the project, is the elder care facility. So it's disappointing that I don't even think it was mentioned in his report.
Okay, fair enough. I do appreciate the feedback. So the last one is from Clint. So Clint says, good evening. I apologize for being able to attend tonight's session. I think that's supposed to be, I apologize for not being able to attend tonight's session. But this year is our 25th wedding anniversary that also lands on February 25th. So the 25th on the 25th seemed quite special to me, and we've taken some time to do a vacation together. I wanted to pass along a brief note to share as an update on a couple of items that I've been focusing on as of late. The Elders Care and Extended Care Facility. We have toured a modular construction facility in Kamloops to check on the quality of the construction on this new modular construction method. The method and quality of the product seems to be great. This method of construction can be completed in a much shorter period of time and is an exciting opportunity for us to explore for our new facility. We'll have some costs pulled together to share with the community and share this with the community before making any final decisions on whether or not to proceed. Townhouse/multiplex units ×2. We are close to sending out a request for proposals regarding the construction of 2 multiplex townhouse-style units. We hope to get this out the door as soon as possible. This project is a piece of the gap closing project that has seen our community receive $4.2 million to assist with closing the gaps on improving our standards in key areas such as education, housing, and traditional foods. Specific claims. We will be focusing on the remaining specific claims and looking to keep them active and proceeding to resolve them with our legal counsel. We will be looking at resubmitting T-Squat and will need to be strengthening the case with information from our people to help the case from the previous submission. There's been a couple of similar type of court case wins by other First Nations recently that our lawyers have been following, and we will put forward our best efforts. Again, my apologies for being absent for tonight's session. I hope that you all have a great evening, and we will see you all soon. Clint. So there was at least something on the extended care facility. The other benefit to the modular construction, and I'm not advocating for it 100%, you know, either way, but the other good thing about it is that it's constructed indoors, so the wood never gets wet, and that's a huge contributor to mold. So that's another good thing about it. And these new modular buildings, they're not like trailers, you know, they're a lot different. They're actually quite beautiful. So we'll see. I know for the 5 plexes, I'm planning to send the RFP to some modular and some non-modular and see where we land.
You mentioned about the, was it 4 plexes as well?
They're 5 plexes.
5 plexes, and you're looking to do modular possibly for those?
Yes. So that one, I'm intending to send the RFP. I've got at least one, probably two modular companies I can send it to. And I'm going to try to get at least one traditional construction just to see, you know, what's the difference in cost and that sort of thing and make an informed decision from there. But I'm pretty confident in the modular stuff, but we'll see. It's also really fast.
Sorry to talk so much. I'm wondering if there isn't an opportunity for members or citizens to maximize on that opportunity if you're bringing a company in with modulars, and I wanted a small carriage, a tiny home behind my place, a little granny pod, and I could get it cheaper if I got in on this deal.
That's actually a really good thought because something that I've been told is that the modular is good, but it's expensive unless you're doing volume. So that could be a win-win for everybody. That's a really good thought, so I'll keep that in mind for sure. Okay. Oh, I think there was one back here. No, further back. Yeah.
I was doing some research on our specific claim, and there was 2 other specific claims that Tla'amin had in the early 90s, but I don't know the details of those. That has to do with Scuttle Bay, Southview, and Wild Road. Can you tell us about those claims?
Yeah, those are the ones that Clint alluded to that we're reviving. So I've just been talking to our lawyer about the Southview claims they're pretty confident on. The Scuttle Bay one I don't know a whole lot about, and the Wild Road one, I think that one's sort of on hold. They made a really ridiculous offer a few years ago, and we just said no. So but the Southview one for sure, because they're worth more money, will be the first that we're looking at. And we're also planning to resubmit the claim for T-Squat, which was originally denied by the government because they said it never was an Indian reserve, so we have no claim there. But it's been proven in court that it was, you know, maybe it wasn't an Indian reserve because the government hadn't made those words up yet, but it was where Tla'amin people lived. So it should be accepted. The lawyers are thinking that that will be accepted, so we're going to try to resubmit that one.
Where is T-Squat?
Okay. Thank you very much. Oh.
Rod?
It's coming.
Sorry, Rod, while you were up there, I thought I had a question about what was taped to people's doorways today about the appeal committee.
The appeal.
The appeals.
Review and appeal panel.
Yeah, review and appeal panel. And I read that, and it said in one of the first paragraphs that if you are serving the nation in any other way, whether as a contractor or an employee, or you know that kind of cancels you out as a possibly applying.
Yeah, that's
this
right in the
appeal
law.
panel. And there's many that really excludes many people. Was that an amendment to the law of 2016 or?
No.
Okay.
In fact, that's the reason why we have to get somebody, because Maynard Harry was on it, and he took a seat on the Economic Development Committee, so he can't be on both.
Okay. Another thing about the memo is that it's quite heavy responsibilities that this panel will be having to deal with.
Yes.
They're heavy responsibilities, and then, but you know, it just seems to me that the next paragraph where it says this is a minimal time commitment, it just doesn't seem to go with the level of decision making that has to be done.
Well, it's a minimal time commitment in that it is not needed very often. So we used the review and appeal panel once since 2016, and that was for the last election.
So the appeals are coming from citizens to this panel?
The panel, there are very specific things that the panel sees appeals on. Most things are dealt with internally. Some things, such as rejection of citizenship application, and election issues or recall of elected officials, the really serious things they're the ones that go to this panel. Not very many things, so only about half a dozen.
Okay. In a past finance meeting, Davis had actually presented at that meeting, and he had mentioned that the finance committee had voted to have retain a whistleblower because citizens felt the need to be able to put forth concerns without, lashback or whatever, toward them or their families or their employment. And I wondered, is this your answer to that?
No, they're totally unrelated.
Okay.
I'm still working on that whistleblower, external whistleblower.
Yeah.
We have our whistleblower policy, but I'm still working on the external whistleblower
Yeah.
contractor. Yeah.
Okay. And are you able to tell us who the other members of this panel are? Because it might influence people's desire to
If I can
actually
remember.
apply.
One of them is on maternity leave, but has agreed that if we need the panel, that she could participate. And her name's Brooke Browning. She's a lawyer and lives in Pemberton. There's a requirement to have a lawyer. So that's the lawyer requirement. There's a requirement to have 2 Tla'amin people. And they are Joel Harry and Melanie Vivier. And 4th is Frances Ledre. I don't know if you know her. She used to be the sort of CAO for the RD, and she ran our last election. No, sorry, not the election, the referendum that we did for the Kalahani specific claim.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Because there's
we
a
need
requirement
to
to have with her background?
No,
No?
but she's useful. There's a requirement to have a lawyer and 2 Tla'amin people.
Okay.
And then it's open.
Okay.
So we need 1 more member.
Okay. One more Tla'amin member.
Nope, can be either.
Either or. Okay.
Okay?
Okay. 2 or more Tla'amin people then would be okay.
Yes, it's just a requirement that there be a minimum of 2 Tla'amin people on the committee or the panel.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I think Floyd had something, and then I better get out of here or I'm going to get lynched. I can feel the hook coming.
You guys briefly mentioned something about a name change in the Tla'amin Native Council or whatever. Did I hear that right?
No.
The 554 thing?
Oh, when we changed from Tla'amin to Tla'amin.
Yep. I worked in a hatchery for 33 years, and I got a severance pay for 22 years. And they said it was due to a name change. And they said the staff, there was a payout for staff, but I don't recall myself. And I talked to some of the secretaries and the bookkeepers, and they were in the gray area too.
I think you're talking about much longer ago. Yeah, I heard something about that too, but Floyd, I honestly don't know the details.
Because there's a name change from Desolation Sound Tribal Council to Tla'amin Band Council.
Yes, I do. I have heard something about that, but I don't know
Is there
the
any way I
details.
can look into it somehow, or
Getting information on it?
yes,
I'm sure we could. I can look into it.
Revenue Canada or something?
I'm not sure, but I can try to find out.
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay, I'll do
Thank
that.
you.
Thanks, everybody, and I'll take my 3 hats off now, and I'm going to be Rod.
Thanks, Rod. How's everybody doing? Do we need a minute to stand up and stretch or anything like that? Yeah? Save some energy for this next part. It's going to... it's at here. And I'll just reach over. Yeah, and I'll just reach over. Hey everybody, we're gonna pick up on the citizenship reform. Thank you. Okay. People will make their way over when they're ready, but so this next topic, it's pretty timely when we're talking about things like the specific claim settlements and some of the other benefits for our people. And I think that's kind of what really triggered a lot of this work. I'll get maybe a bit into more of that background, but I just want to point out right from the get-go that what we're proposing here tonight isn't going to take, like, changes to our citizenship criteria is not going to take citizenship away from anybody. Like, we're not going to strip anybody's citizenship, but it's about setting rules for the future. And further to a conversation earlier tonight as well, this is about citizenship with the Tla'amin Nation, not about Indian status or Indian membership with the Tla'amin Indian Band or the 554 list, etc. That's 554 status Indian eligibility. That's set by Canada, and that whole thing is under review and reform too. Just so happens that we're doing work on our own rules, because when we became a treaty nation, self-governing, we got the authority to set our own citizenship laws and eligibility. So, essentially what happened, we've been working on this for a year, just over a year now, but the Citizenship Committee, as they were starting to apply our own citizenship rules, they realized that they were getting applications from people that they didn't recognize the names or the families or anything like that, and so they also noticed that these people weren't on the banned list, right? They were non-554, so they were questioning kind of where these folks came from, right? And then they brought this to the attention of the leadership, the Legislative Assembly, and asked them, what do you guys think about this? Should we have a look at our own criteria? And the leadership agreed, and so they set out on this kind of review of our law. And so that's when they asked Melissa Louie to help out, and she asked me to help out a bit too. But she's since gotten hired by Musqueam, and she's doing their legal counsel work. So I've kind of taken over on this, and I'm leading this work, but I'm being assisted by Nancy Morgan, who's Melissa worked for. She's a lawyer. You've probably all met Nancy. She's been here a lot over the years. And we've been doing some outreach. We had a survey that we had open for like 6 months. We got people's thoughts on what they thought eligibility criteria should look like for citizenship. And we held a number of focus groups to see kind of less, formal than a survey. We actually just asking people what they thought about citizenship. Some of you might remember the ones that did the survey. I sat through one of those presentations. I had all those like hypothetical situation stories, some of them kind of ridiculous, but they all kind of pointed out, or they were revealing at least as far as what people thought were important factors of citizenship. Anyway, the conclusion of all that outreach is essentially people want ancestry and a community connection as part of the criteria. And we'll get into what community connection means. Ancestry is a little easier to define. It's not even that easy, but it's easier. But just to give you a sense of what we were starting out with, this is the current criteria that's in our citizenship law. So an individual is entitled to be enrolled as a citizen if they have Tla'amin ancestry. So that's okay. B is registered or eligible to be registered on the Tla'amin banned list as of a day before the effective date. So all those, people who are 554s. C is, and some of those might have ancestry and some might not, right? If they're a 554. Tla'amin ancestry, I mean. C, adoption. So people who have been adopted as a minor child, they can be eligible for enrollment. And these are all ors, so it's any one of these. D is a descendant of an individual eligible under A, B, or C. So that's where things really, widen. Because a descendant of anybody from here is eligible, and any of their descendants and their descendants and their descendants and onward, right? So you kind of like forecast out and think, wow, if we're getting people today that we have no idea if they're Tla'amin or not, and they've never been here, or all those sort of things, you can only imagine what it's going to be like in 100 years, 200 years, so on and so forth. So that's why we were having a look at this. And what we're currently thinking, and the wording might be different. I don't know if people can see this. Is this okay right now? Anyway, so we're still thinking ancestry is important. B is about the banned list, and this is kind of a point in time thing. So there's no more people that will qualify under B, so it's not really a concern. C, we're still thinking people should be able to be adopted. And we have to define further what Tla'amin Kasam means. There's some more work to do, so I don't want to get too hung up on that. But essentially, we're looking to get rid of D, but incorporate a present-day community connection. So that still means most people who will, going forward, if these rules or some iteration of these rules would take force, most people would qualify under ancestry, right? Because it's not really a blood quantum thing that we worry about that. It's just as long as you can trace somebody to the family tree. But also, ancestry isn't good enough. We want them to have a community connection as well. So this is really a kind of new territory for us. There are some other nations that are incorporating something like this. Community connection, that's where we got the idea, was looking at other nations. But, it's certainly kind of a progressive way to go, meaning that it's not really something it's kind of leading edge, if you will. So I'll get into a bit more about what that means, right? Because that seems pretty subjective. We thought a lot about what does a community connection look like. So there's a lot of different ways to factor in what a community connection would look like. On the easy end of the spectrum is residency. Like if you live in the territory, that's pretty, I think easy as far as arguing that there's a connection. Visits to the territory Have you been here within a certain period of time? Have you had any life events, any significant events in your life that happened here in Tla'amin territory? Do you participate in events or activities with Tla'amin citizens? Like, do you have a sense of, or do you have like a community of Tla'amin citizens that you engage with? This one is about nation engagement. So do you attend events like this? Are you a contributing member of the Tla'amin nation? Practice culture. Do you practice culture? Do you, harvest traditional foods? Do you engage in traditional activities? And then the last one we've got here is like knowledge of Tla'amin, knowledge of of our history, of our language. So of that kind of list, we tried to narrow things down into something that can be verifiable or objective. And what we're thinking, and this is not a finished product, this is a work in progress. We've already gotten some feedback we just got back from sessions in Vancouver and Victoria, and I think I have in my mind kind of some ideas of changes to this already, but I wanted to keep it the same for all of the meetings this week. But here goes. So as far as the community connection, you would have to meet any one of the following. You live in the territory, you visited in the territory in the past 10 years, or you've had a life event in the territory. And then you have to meet each of these. And you've attended a Tla'amin Nation event or a cultural event that includes Tla'amin citizens within the past 5 years. And you can demonstrate knowledge of the Tla'amin history and language. And then you might be thinking, well, that's okay. Even if we went with that, how would we verify that? How would people prove that? It's a good question, and we don't have it completely nailed down, but we've got some ideas. Living in the territory, again, that's an easy one. You've got your proof of address, driver's license, mail, whatever. That's easy, I think. Having visited in the territory, today's day and age, hopefully we've got some photos or video or somebody. An affidavit is like a legal declaration you can make. It's like an oath that's enforceable by the courts. So that's kind of somebody vouching for you that, oh yeah, Randolph and I, we went fishing in the territory 5 years ago when you came home, type of thing. And, I'd sign off and say, and the citizenship committee would consider that. They'd say, oh yeah, Dylan's not a liar. So obviously, so Randolph is there. So those sorts of things. Had life event, same thing, photos, videos, official records. So if we're talking about, if you got married in the territory, you'd have your marriage certificate. If you were born, you'd have your birth certificate. If you graduated from Brooks or something, you'd have your dogwood. Attending nation events or cultural events that include citizens. We'd have like attendance records from nation events. Like tonight we don't have a sign-in sheet, but when we go to Victoria and Vancouver and all those things, we have sign-in sheets. Tonight, for the first time, I think, at least I've been aware of that, we're using this live streaming format, which thanks to Alex for setting that up, but that's something that we could have available for people who don't necessarily live here, don't have the means to attend an event. They might have good reasons why they can't be there in person, but at least they're engaging by, tracking, following what's going on, and that's one way where we could verify people are connected. For the demonstration of knowledge and of history and language, that one's probably, it takes some work to get there, but again, that's something that's measurable because we could have a Tla'amin Nation citizenship exam, like Canadian, if you want to get Canadian citizenship, you have to write an exam. You have to sing the national anthem and you have to say, who the prime minister is and those sorts of things, right? So, it's new for us, but it's not new out there. And it's a way we can show that people are making an effort. I'm not abandoning this slide, I'm sure people have some thoughts, but I'm just going to summarize what the total criteria, at least this iteration, exists of. So remember, the first primary criteria was that A, B, or C. So you'd be ancestry or 554, which again is kind of a frozen in time thing, but we can't really change and get rid of that whole thing because it's the Canadian government of Canada required us to have that as part of the transfer of their fiduciary duty. Anyway, that's getting too in the details there. But anyway, any one of these three, ancestry, 554 list, legally adopted, plus the connection criteria, right? So that's kind of just trying to summarize the this idea. Yes. Can we just commit to using the mics, because so people that are logging in can hear as well?
Myself, I have married a Tla'amin native, and at my wedding I had Tla'amin people, and I have lived in Tla'amin territory for the last 20 years, but I do not have ancestry, so that denies me citizenship, or am I eligible to be a citizen?
So this doesn't take citizenship away from anybody today.
No, I married my husband after Bill C-31, so I'm not eligible for the 55400.
Okay. So you're non-status. You're not a 554.
Yeah.
And you are you don't have Tla'amin ancestry.
No.
Okay, then you're not eligible
For citizenship.
for citizenship. Even today, you're not. And with these changes, you're not, because they don't allow people to marry anymore since, what, 1985 or 4? Yeah.
Well, we've been allowed to marry, but we're not allowed to get status.
Correct. That's what I meant. Sorry.
Yeah.
You can marry, but you can't get citizenship or membership if you marry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
How come the ones that did get married before 86 got to keep it when the ones that married before 86, a native woman, lost and her children lost? They had to fight for it to get back, and then now some, they divorced, they just married for schooling, they still have it.
Yeah. That's a government of Canada legacy that I can't really justify. Like, it's terrible. But there's nothing like this doesn't allow those folks to pass on citizenship. So I think the injustice that you're pointing out, this respects that. What I mean by that is, it doesn't allow those people who shouldn't have got status to pass it on. And it does allow for those Bill C-31s that regain their status to pass it on. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. This phases them out. It doesn't strip them from citizenship, because we would be challenged to do that by, if we did that to somebody, they could sue us, because they fall under this, and this is in our final agreement.
What I'm not clear on myself is what I'm understanding or hearing is there are people that want to transfer back or be recognized as a Tla'amin person because of blood quantum or bloodline that have married off or married off and lost their membership here and had children from another community, like the husband's community, right? And then to now want to become a citizen. What does that do then when they have children? Does that entitle their children as well if they do get that citizenship back? You know, if they become Tla'amin, are people accepting that? And does that mean all their children would be accepted as well? I'm not really clear on that. I just feel it's really cloudy for me. I don't know what that looks like.
I think, sorry? Yeah, so that we first, even our current law doesn't allow for people to have more than one citizenship or membership. I think the way it's described is affiliation with another nation or tribe. So they have to decide, people have to decide if they're going to be a citizen or a Palmalco band member or, those sorts of things. It can't be both. So in your example, somebody who, say they're from Tla'amin and they married somebody from Palmalco, and they had kids over there, and the wife and the kids are Palmalco. As long as the wife and the kids can trace a ancestor directly, their mother or father, to the Tla'amin family tree, they'll always be eligible to be a citizen as long as they can meet the connection criteria as well, right? So let's say they lived in Palmalco for their whole lives, or since she was married. She just hasn't been over here since and all that stuff. She would have to prove the connection again. Even though she's got the ancestry, that's not good enough. You've got to show how you're a member of Tla'amin or a member of the community. So presuming that the wife was probably born here, right? And then she'd have to pass the test. But this would be tricky whether she's attended a nation event. You know what I'm saying?
So does that apply to her children then that have never been here?
Depends. So if the children are under 18, we're not going to require the children to pass a test and all this, right? It's going to require the parent will have to demonstrate the connection. And if she wants to enroll the kids at the same time as she's enrolled, then only she has to pass the test. But if the kids are grown, let's say, and they all want to come across, if they're over 18, they have to meet this test too.
Yeah, I guess why I bring that up is that I think it's a real concern because there could be a lot of people, and we're not just talking Homalco or Clahus or Comox or Seychelles, It's we're getting really overloaded. People that have never been here, that have married away and lost their membership of Tla'amin. They've lost their status as a Tla'amin nation. Although they're born and raised here and got married off the reserve to another First Nations from another reserve and have children there and then want to return. What do we have to offer? That's my concern. Okay?
Yeah. So one thing that we heard in Vancouver, and we actually asked the room, is this something you would agree, was some kind of probation, if you will, or if you want to be a member, or if you want to transfer back to Tla'amin, or become a full-fledged citizen, that there'd be a waiting period before all the benefits kick in, land ownership, health living dividend, any kind of other dividend. I don't know if we could. I think POSEC was mentioned. I'm just not sure we can do that right now because of if they're a status Indian, we're obligated to do that through the FFA. So that's a tricky one, but that was definitely mentioned. We just have to think that one through. But this idea of having a probationary period for people to demonstrate that they really want to be a part of Tla'amin, not just for the benefits.
How you doing there?
Good.
I just want to acknowledge the meeting today, but the hearings are spot on, so we showed up late. So we're out in branches today, and me and my dad there, hereditary family. So as a hereditary family, we got a lot of power here, and everybody bypassed our power, like with the treaty process. And it's becoming a citizenship, like being a citizenship, I think it's disrespectful to all our people in Tla'amin, because it's our Aboriginal right. When I was a council member back in the day, and they said they never would take away your Aboriginal right. Your Aboriginal right's worth more than anything. You can't do that. You cannot take away someone's right. And the citizenship thing is setting us up for the tax process. And I was involved in the treaty process. I listened to the government. Like I heard Elsie talk about the quantum of blood. They said, "Oh yeah, like our people were growing too fast." So they said, "Oh, we're gonna get quantum of blood." I remember all that stuff back 10 years, 15, 20 years ago. And like we're talking about citizenship here. It's gearing us up for a taxation system. Like it's my right. And then I remember talking about this in the treaty process, and you were there, and everybody was there. It's got to be documented in these minutes right now that they said they'd never take away your Aboriginal right. And my Aboriginal right, you can't take my right away. That's why I'm here today, because I want that in that minutes right now.
So, yeah, I mean, I've heard you make that point at many of these sessions, and we're past like that. So if you want to challenge the treaty, then that's probably your next step, because there's nothing I can't do anything about it. Like, you make a good point, the Aboriginal rights, but this community passed the treaty, which they're a communal right, and through that framework, they passed the treaty, and so now we just got to make the best of this. That's what we're trying to do. Challenge it. I encourage you to challenge it. I'm not a lawyer, but...
We're a hereditary family, and it's disrespectful to be called a citizen. All these people don't know what they're getting involved with. They're going to be paying taxes after 224, right? And then, like, as a hereditary family, you got to meet with us. That's why I came here today. You're going to have to meet with us sooner or later. And then,
be happy to.
We're got in the process.
Yeah.
My dad's a hereditary chief from the Tla'amin Nation, and we used to be a tribal council back in the day. And then you talk about blood quantum from all over the reserves. Tla'amin controlled most of the territory. And then stuff happened. I don't want to explain about that. Everybody knows what happened. When the Tla'amin's controlled Clahoos, Malco, and Comox. But there was a lot of things that went wrong with that process. And but I just want to listen to the minutes. They're going to meet with the hereditary family.
I'll meet with
and
your
there's
family.
There's a lot of hereditary family in this room right now that you got to meet with all of us. And then it may be another court case against the Tla'amin band, because I was a counselor at the time. They said never ever take your Aboriginal right away. I always stress that. It's in the minutes of the government meetings, federal and provincial governments. I said, you can't take my right away. And they said, no. I talked to Roy Francis and them, and they go, oh, no, you can't do it. Your Aboriginal right is not in the way. So explain to me what a Aboriginal right means versus a citizenship. Because when you're a citizenship, I know that's setting you up for paying taxes. You lose all your rights. That's what citizenship means to me, and I don't like it.
I mean, the only thing I can add that's relevant to this is that we have a treaty now. Rights are defined within the treaty. If you want to enroll in the treaty, that's your choice. And if you enroll in the treaty, you become a citizen. And we're setting the rules for citizenship in this process. The other stuff, yeah. My application's in. No, but I didn't live here. Yeah. And it would be, my taxes wouldn't go to the nation, but now I live here. So it makes, honestly, it's an individual choice, and it makes no sense. I mean, to pay taxes, lose your exemption, pay taxes if the nation's not going to collect that. To me, that doesn't make sense. So here I am. Dude, this is like not the time and place. It's not the time and place. Okay, we're gonna continue on. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yes.
I've applied for the citizenship for my daughter multiple years in a row, and they've had meetings with chief and council, and hasn't been approved. But the one thing that puzzles me is that my 8-year-old daughter is enrolled as a citizen, but my 5-year-old hasn't been approved yet. And I keep reapplying, and I'm wondering, what does it take to be a citizen of Tla'amin Nation? What's the difference between both my daughters?
Yeah, I can't comment on that because I don't know why. I don't know why. So, yeah. But I encourage, like, pardon? That's, yeah, so that, yeah. Okay. So check with Pam, or the members of that committee are Anthony, Kathy Paul, and Teresa Smith. And they would have information. Sorry. Question?
Okay, that was my question. Who do we go to apply for citizenship? Because last time it was Kathy Gallegos.
Oh.
Yeah, that's who I got mine from.
Really?
That's going back in time. I don't know when we started all this process, but yeah, if someone could just make it clear
Pam.
for other people.
Pam.
Thank you.
Hi, Dylan.
Hi.
I think most people know me, but if you don't, my name's Kathy Harry. Okay, sorry. My name's Kathy Harry, and my husband's Leonard Harry. So I came because I wasn't sure. I haven't applied for citizenship, but I came to gain understanding about, how you become a citizen, what qualifies you. So from what I understand from what you said, blood, that wouldn't be me. 554, that wouldn't be me. I haven't been adopted. So it's more in the area of community involvement. So I'm not quite clear about that. So I've been in Tla'amin for 30 years, over 30 years. I've been married for over 30 years. I have 4 children, grandchildren. I'm involved. Most people here know who I am. So I'm not sure if I qualified to apply. So I thought maybe you could, in my case, if you could clarify if I should pursue it or if I should just let that go.
So this, both in the existing, if I understand this correctly, both in the existing criteria and under this new criteria, you wouldn't be eligible for citizenship because you need ancestry or 554, which you don't have, and you weren't adopted by, one of those two. So we talked, one of the earlier questions we had in the focus groups and whatnot was, should we allow folks to marry in? Get citizenship through marriage if they didn't have ancestry, and people did not agree with that. They said, there are people who are members of this community who, through like yourself and like Alex and others who we recognize they're members of the community, but for the purposes of citizenship, or they're voting and run for government, all that sort of thing was just not something that people wanted to include. Okay. Any other points on this before we go on? So one of the things I just wanted to share with folks here back home, what kind of some of the themes we heard from our people and our cousins and judges in Vancouver and Victoria, what they had to share about this presentation. I would say generally when people made comments on the connection criteria and the criteria overall, they actually wanted it a bit tighter, a bit more narrow. They thought it's a bit too easy for somebody who doesn't have a, let's say, a bona fide or an honest connection. Like if they worked at it for, a few months, they could basically meet the connection criteria. So that was, people thought it should be a bit more strict. This idea of participating at an event electronically should be thought of as a way to connect. I mentioned this idea about a probation period or waiting period for benefits to kick in. There was questions about, this is a kind of new concept, and if somebody wants to challenge, if they're rejected or if their application is rejected, do we face challenges by this new criteria? I can't really answer that, but we'll have to just make sure we look into that a bit more. People thought that we should expand the representation of Citizenship Committee to include more representation, rather from elders, but they didn't think that elders should be put in the position of making decisions like that necessarily on their own. It's just, but as an advisory recommendation kind of guidance role, that they thought at every Citizenship Committee there should be, at least one or two elders there to, because they're the ones who know the history and the families and that sort of thing. And then, the question of can applicants appeal if their application is refused? That is something that exists today. It's never been used, I don't think. This is that review and appeal panel that you were asking about. They actually would review appeals of people who've been their applications have been rejected. And then that part about what is a Tla'amin custom adoption, we need to put some parameters around there, because there could be some, protocols that not everybody would agree with. So once and for all, we need to define what that means. And then I'll just quickly go through what the process is, and I hope it's okay if I sit down here. So this first bubble says that an individual makes an application, right? That application goes to the Citizenship Committee. So the orange boxes are the Citizenship Committee, and they determine whether the individual meets the primary criteria, which is that A, B, or C, ancestry, band list, adoption. If that's a no, then their application is refused. If they meet the primary criteria, then they check out, the Citizenship Committee determines whether the applicant meets the connection criteria. If that's a yes, then the application's approved. So that's kind of the easier cases where from the application it's clear that this individual meets the criteria. If they don't meet the connection criteria, there's a way for the Citizenship Committee to consider kind of case-by-case circumstances. Like, let's say somebody has no connection or they can't show a connection for good reason, right? Like, what if their parent was part of the 60 scoop and they got taken away and they've only since found out that they're from Tla'amin and they want to come and be a part of the nation. Or there's been some trauma back home. Home is not a good place for them. That's why they have a good reason why they're not at events, those sorts of things. So anyway, this gives the Citizenship Committee opportunity to look at special considerations. If they're satisfied by those special considerations, the Citizenship Committee can approve an individual for citizenship. If not, then the application is refused. But an individual has the option to appeal, and if they do appeal, then it goes to the review and appeal panel, which is again another independent group at arm's length that would look at it. And the review and appeal panel can overturn or uphold a decision of the Citizenship Committee. So this already exists in our law today. Like if in the application of the current criteria, review and appeal panel can overturn those decisions. I guess the question I have is, should that continue? Should there be this appeal mechanism? And if so, should the review and appeal panel kind of just apply the objective criteria? Or should the review panel really be hearing these special considerations too? Because those folks might not have kind of a lot of the community history. I mean, right now we're lucky we've got a couple of Tla'amin people there. But, you know, depending on who that is, they might not know. So I don't know if it's appropriate that the review and appeal panel kind of able to decide on this part, or if they just look at the criteria objectively. If that, maybe I'm getting a bit too into the weeds on that one, but anyway, welcome any thoughts on that. Marlene, can I take that?
So I'm just wondering where the old knowledge comes into play. You've got these groups that are making decisions. Is there a role for elders? Is there a role for Sigitists? You know, when we look at our historical systems.
Yes, so good question. I may not have made it extra clear, but this what we're proposing, and what we've heard so far, is that people want the Citizenship Committee to expand and include elders. So this 1, 2, 3, these decision points, these orange ones, that's where we would propose that there be elders. We haven't said that's 1 elder, that's 3 elders, that's 5 elders. Initially, we had a whole other committee that would be struck that would kind of just recommend to the Citizenship Committee. But people thought that might have was just creating an extra step that wouldn't be necessary if you just had elders on the Citizenship Committee to begin with. So it's an option that we can implement, but just what does it look like? How do we include elders? How do they want to be included? What's appropriate?
I think there should be like an advisory capacity for the final rejection that would stop the appeals at that point. If you had some of that old knowledge in there that just said, hang on, I actually remember something about the ancestry, and that discussion was done. It doesn't have to be elders all throughout, but
Yeah.
there should be an advisory.
And you don't think that having, let's say, 3 elders on the Citizenship Committee that would be maybe not voting, but advising, being present, like a, what do you call, ex officio, and these decision points, right? I think it's mostly about the connection. Like is like in this, it's like what is their intent and what are their circumstances for not having a connection. This stuff should be pretty black and white if they're on the family tree or not. Can they trace ancestry to the family tree or not? But it's more about what is their intent, and so that's where the subjectivity comes in.
So the rules, Dylan, so the rules that govern the final step there, they look at the case at that point and it's based on their own decision making. Their powers are different and go beyond the criteria that's set in place prior. Say for instance, okay, I can use Kathy and Sheila as an example here because they both said they've been married for many years to a Tla'amin person. They've been embedded in our community for years. So they make application, they're refused. They go right to appeal. They go right to
Yep.
that final committee.
Right.
And the final committee could look at it and say, you know, you didn't get married yesterday. Like you're not a fortune hunter. You've been with your husband for 30 years or 20 years. We're going to grant you citizenship. Is that something that is that a scenario?
I mean, it would only be a scenario if we allowed for that in the review and appeal law. Like we can, we can really put boundaries around what they can decide on. So that's why my question was like, do we want them to just weigh in on whether the person meets, A, B, or C, and the, event and or the life event, or sorry, this one, the life events and the attendance at events and that sort of thing? Or do we want them to be able to consider, well, my mom was adopted out and that's why I can't show this connection. And, if the elders and the citizenship committee say no, I don't know why this review and appeal panel, considering that this is at arm's length from, politics and all that, it should be, why should this panel overrule that piece? So we can limit what they're able to, the basis on which they can overturn a decision. Yeah. So, like, we could say, the review panel, in your example, the review and appeal panel cannot decide on applications from people who don't have ancestry or who don't or haven't or aren't applying on the basis of marriage or something like that, right? Like we can put a fence around that. Yeah.
You're talking about our relation and all that heritage. Wouldn't the person you're trying to decide about, wouldn't that person that you're making a decision about, if that person was a good person all those 20, 30 years and they're trying to become a citizen, wouldn't that come into play if they've been a good person all these years and they haven't caused a problem in our reserve? And wouldn't that help their cause? I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would come into play here, but not really, because if they were here and they're good being, people knew who they were and everybody agrees that they're a good person, then they would certainly, I think, meet this because they'd be around. But whether they have ancestry or on the ban list or have been adopted, that's kind of a black and white thing that, they'd have to meet this too. Under this set of rules, they'd have to have ancestry on the ban list or adoption, even before you start considering that they're a good person.
But never mind the interest, ancestry or all that. Think of
Thank you.
What kind of person this individual is. Since they've moved here, they've really been a ideal citizen, and we should look at that. I think.
Yeah, and would you want somebody like that? So they don't have ancestry, but they've lived here, and they've been a good person.
They've come here and they've married into.
Married in, okay.
Married into.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, they didn't just come in. They married into.
Yeah.
And they want to become a citizen, and we're refusing them. And they've been good.
Yeah.
Good people. And we say no to them. And I think, I think we should look at their background, that they've been good to our people and good to everyone.
I know what you're saying. There are some nations that have incorporated that. They have they allow for people to marry in, but part of that process is like a review of their character, right? But as far as the direction I've been told is that we're not including people to marry in. If people think differently, then we need to look at that. But
I
I'm not sure
think
what
there's quite a bit of us in this room that have spouses that don't come from here, so I think that, you know, all these people are good merit in the community and that kind of thing. So I think we should stick with the ancestral and our family lineages because our people have suffered enough throughout the years. Everything has been taken away from them. And that's how we've been. We've been good-hearted people, you know, come into the land and, you know, women occupy 1% of the land and that kind of thing. So now that we're developing our own laws and jurisdiction over our peoples, I think we need to be mindful of that. But it's not to say that we don't appreciate all these people we got married to because they understand. I think they're, you know, the privileges that went along with their ability to marry into the community. It's not out of disrespect, it's out of respect for ourselves. So,
okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Just a question on, like say a scenario where someone doesn't know their ancestry very well. Do we have like an established Tla'amin like ancestry tree to refer to for that person?
Yeah, that's a really important part of this. We have a tree that's in a software program. It was worked on for years, but this is going back like 15 years.
Right.
And it hasn't been well maintained.
So if we, like that might be a project we might want to think about an updated one.
100%.
Because I had questions I wanted to ask my nan, and I think we kind of take for granted how long we have our elders around to ask some of these questions.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking over at Rod because we've heard that. We've heard that for quite a few months, and we do need to do that. And I think there's a plan to do that. Get somebody to work on the family tree. We're going to hire some, or we're going to post that contract to get that up to speed. And I'm not sure exactly what that looks like yet as far as the duration of that, but that's a piece of work that needs to happen, like you say, when we still have the knowledge. Yeah, thank you. I saw a hand over here. Oh, yeah.
Just like Marlene had mentioned, this suggetus, that stems from the custom of longhouse or big house, hereditary chiefs. That's part of the reason why when you go to these ceremonies, you have witnesses, because the witnesses are the people who tell you about your ancestry. They tell you about the names that you're given. So it is encouraged to have the elders and anybody who knows ceremonial rites for names, because when you become a community, that's how you remember your language and your name. And just like Cindy had said, a lot of things were taken away, and that includes the potlatch, that includes the naming, that includes the language. I went to a blanket ceremony on the weekend, and I heard with all the things going on with protests, you know, with the hereditary chiefs up in Wet'suwet'en, it was suggested by Jamie Baptiste, an MP from Nova Scotia, for all of the MPs to do a blanket ceremony so they can be sensitive to First Nations. And one 25-year-old from Nunavut, she said no, she slammed it down. And he said, why? And she said, because it doesn't include the Métis or the Inuit history. So if you're going to do citizenship, you have to include Kaimu names, ancestry elders who do know territory, including the names of families, and who were here. So the young people, like she had asked about, you know, her ancestry tree. We can't just solely depend on governance to provide that for ourselves. Some of us are gifted where we keep that lineage going, and we know who our ancestors are. But that needs to be included in citizenship, and yes, is it going to broaden out for the committee, or are you going to close it?
We're going to broaden it out. Yeah, I think. That's what I'm hearing from these sessions. It's not my decision, but that's what I'll say the people are saying. That's what I'm hearing.
Who are the people you speak to broaden out committee?
Well, I guess I'm reporting my work to the Executive Council, and then law revisions would be approved by the legislature or Legislative Assembly. But there's still a lot of discussion to be had about what is the right number of people to be added to the legislature. I don't have a good answer, but those are the people who will just make the decision, yeah.
Whose portfolio? Who has the portfolio for citizenship?
I think that would be Larry Larry Louis, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So if I have any more questions, I can ask him. Okay.
that'd be great,
thanks.
thank you. So I was just told that it's 7:30. Sorry for going over. This is an important topic, and we've got one more important topic. It's not going to be a long thing. Just would like to know whether is this on the right track? Like, I know this isn't a finished product. We've gotten some changes to make based on the feedback we've gotten. But is this something that seems reasonable to do? I think we know that the status quo, the existing rules are too broad. I think we have general agreement on that. We want to make it a bit more narrow. We want to focus on people that want to be part of this community. So it's just a matter of putting that in law. How do you put parameters around it? That's what we're trying to do. So we'll come back again in a few months, I guess, with the next set, which we hope will be close to the final set. That's all I have to say about citizenship at this point. Chacha Tanapet. So, and I think, Steve, maybe you can start yapping and I'll pull up their pictures.
Thank you. Start yapping. Are we all tired of yapping? My significant other told me to hurry up and shut up so we can get on with the door prizes. And yes, Maggie, the Vancouver Canucks won 4-3 in overtime. And seeing how I'm a Habs fan, I think I'll just drag this presentation right out. Oops. I say that proudly. Okay, we're here today to talk a bit about the Comprehensive Nation Plan. I think by now, hopefully the buzz is out there. We started discussion bringing this idea out last December, so I hope everyone's kind of getting familiar with the idea that we are doing some planning. Just in terms of background, prior to becoming a treaty nation, our former Tla'amin Indian band, maybe I'll go out of the way. Our former Tla'amin Indian band developed a comprehensive community plan. That plan took nearly 2 years in the making to put together with the guidance of our elders, youth members, on and off our former reserve lands. Chief and Council of Day and program managers that worked in the band office also participated for a couple of days to discuss the challenges working under the Indian Act. The 2000 CCP was developed to its fullest potential by the nation for the nation. In today's context, 13 years later, it is obvious that times have changed, and so has our current situation. We are now a treaty nation, free from the Indian Act. We have lawmaking authority and can now generate revenue. You have often heard the Hagues mention at our annual general assemblies that financially the nation has never been in a better position. We now have an opportunity to go through a review process of the 2000 Comprehensive Community Plan to update our goals and objectives in the areas of governance, community programs and services, lands and resource, finance and administration, and economic development with the new tools that we have today. These are the areas I just described are the house post that our current Executive Council represents. As we are no longer an Indian Act band and wards of the federal government, we have changed the name from our past 2000 Comprehensive Community Plan to a Comprehensive Nation Plan for now, as a result of our self-governing authority. We are, however, looking for suggestions, to kind of rename this plan. Comprehensive Nation Plan isn't all that exciting. So, I think further down the road as our plan progresses, we'll be seeking guidance to suggest, well, what do we call this plan? So where are we now? We are now in a process of undertaking community engagement. Back in December, we launched the Comprehensive Nation Plan with the support of the Brooks Leadership Group. It was recommended by the Implementation Working Group to ask the students if they would get involved, and they said yes, as part of the requirements where they can get their credits. It's important for these future role models to get to know and understand a bit about the nation the nation where they come from, and get familiar with some of the operations within different departments. In addition to supporting the open house, and in addition to supporting our upcoming open houses in the spring, they have accepted the challenge of completing 10 Comprehensive Nation Plan surveys, each by the end of this month. If they meet their quota for the surveys, the nation will have over 200 surveys completed in support of the Comprehensive Nation Plan, which to me is simply amazing, because that's a lot of surveys to have completed by our members. And just a reminder, the deadline is February 29th. That's when it closes, and there are 3 grand prizes of $500. January of this year, we met with the elders and once again with our youth to introduce the project. This past weekend, we just completed a round of focus groups with our members in Vancouver and Victoria. And these pictures of the sessions where our members shared their comments and ideas. I guess most of you are aware we are on a live feed on YouTube for this session. And so we are watching them actively engage in this planning process as they're watching us. The focus groups are structured to find out what the priorities should be for the nation. It looks back at examples of 2007 goals and objectives, in addition to revisiting our vision and mission statements that are centered around the guiding principles that have ancestral teachings as a foundation for moving forward. The focus groups are designed to reflect on the past, look at how we're doing in the present, in order to chart out a sustainable future for generations to come. Much similar to what our polls outside here represent, the past, present, and future. So just in closing, next steps in March, we have scheduled some focus groups with our staff as well, because it's important that they get involved and hear what everybody outside of buildings and stuff have to say, and how to better communicate with one another. So we've been doing another round of community engagement to seek more direction, provide updates on the first round, I think, thanks with our members. And that's kind of where we are right now. So it's very early in the planning cycle, and there will be notices coming out in the Nemot and Facebook for everybody to get involved in right now. Help us guide the ship, kind of thing. That's all I have. Any questions?
I was just curious, has the nation ever decided or talked about this building here? Like if it could be named something else besides government building? Because I don't know, I think we should have a Kaimok name since we've been in the treaty process, and how can we collectively agree on something that would be reflective of the Tla'amin people? Because we have Tla'amin Health Services like that. So what is it going to be here? I'm not sure, but
yeah,
because I don't like calling it government building. I said the nation building, and they go, "Oh, what's that? The administration building?" No, you mean the gov building.
Yeah, we've had some. I've heard some discussions that have been happening around, like talking about the community rooms and stuff, and the rooms upstairs. To start internally thinking about what could be possibly potentially. Name them, and kind of name or what everyone's happy with to do so. So I don't see any other reason, unless Rod has one.
No, I just think that's a really good idea, and we should put our minds to how to go about coming up with something, whether it's something to do with Tishosim or anyway. I think that's an awesome idea.
Like it.
I want to know if there's time to get family focus group in
On
the plan. Like if as a family we wanted to talk to someone about the plan in more detail.
yes, yeah, most definitely.
Who do we ask?
Yeah, I like that idea. I think we've always had it out there for whatever initiative we've been working on, whether it be even like citizenship, to hard issues that families can discuss, with themselves and have some resource people there if you like. Then certainly just I guess let me know, and we can set something up.
I just had a quick question about, is there a deadline for the comprehensive community plan? Has a deadline been set for the comprehensive community plan?
Well, as I mentioned, the first one took nearly 2 years to complete. But setting a marker out there or some line, draw a line. I don't think we've really done that yet. But hopefully, we're going to be getting a good draft going by maybe fall. Yeah, that we'll share.
And for the other meetings, I was just wondering if we can get minutes from Vancouver, Victoria. Can we get the minutes for the meeting?
The minutes?
Yeah, the minutes for the meeting in Victoria and Vancouver.
Yeah, we'll be sharing the summaries from those working groups and what they had to their suggestion for where the direction we should be going.
All right.
And especially in support for them.
All right.
Yes. Going once. Going twice. Where's the door prizes?
Sorry, just a last comment, a little bit off topic, but I'm noticing that we don't have board members from the business arm in attendance. There's a lot of people missing here tonight that are really in key positions with the nation, and I'm really hoping that you're all going to be at the breakfast meeting this Saturday. And I'm really hoping to see, to me, the economic development is tied to everything that they do here at Government House. And it's so disappointing that we are in these silos and the business arm is over there and the Government House is over here, and we're hearing these reports independent of one another. It's all connected. And so I really hope that you're all going to come out to this other meeting and bring your families with you. And I really hope to see the government, the people that sit in and that have been elected at the session on Saturday. I think we should all be there.
Just in closing, I will, as one of the leaders for the nation, I'll relay that message to the other legislators and executive council. With regrets from our Jesus. Obviously, he can't be here, but we'll pass that message along. I myself have been guilty of not making certain, education meetings such as Celebration of Success. I am guilty on that fact because I was at Fisher meetings, and this past weekend, Rod had to be me because my wife had some medical issues, but we do under certain situations that we just can't get around. So, but I will pass that message along, and I'll see you Saturday morning. Thank you. Thank you all for coming out.
I want to thank everyone for coming, and I'm so happy to see all the children here, our future Chief of Council. And I'm happy to see our young adults who were here earlier, more of our future Chief and Council. And, I'm hoping there's a lot of our youth that are watching too. And I'm always so